let's go ahead and create a couple of functions inside of our search client in order to make it easy to search for our properties either just by text or search by location. So here we have our search client open. Now, what do I mean by functions to make access simple? Well, recall that we created this nested item here, which is going to be private. So everything inside of here, inside of this particular item object, isn't accessible outside of this item class by default. And we want it that way because it's good separation of concerns, good separation of our code. So we need to create a couple of public functions that allow us to actually access these requests. So let's do that at the bottom here, outside of the first item. So we just want one curly brace here. And here's where we're going to create the first function. So the first function we will create is simply called search. And this is going to take some text, which will be, for example, London, Manchester. It's also going to take the callback function. Remember, we discussed that briefly. Where is it? Over here. So in our send request, we also pass the callback. And that's the function that gets executed once the request has been completed. Right, so how do we activate this request? Well, underscore, recall, is the ID of this private member. So when we type underscore, we're accessing it. And what do? We are going to send a request. And what does the request require? Well, it requires a param map. So let's create a param map because we don't yet have one. And that's open and close curly brace. And what is that going to hold for us? Well, first of all, we use this param map in our, build URL. So we need a key and a value for each parameter, and then it builds it for us. So what's the first key that we need? Well, let's have an action that is search underscore listings. What else do we need? Comma. Which page number do we want? We want the first page for now. What's the place name? That is going to be equal to the text that we've passed in. And that's pretty much that. Then the second item that this wants, of course, is the callback that we're going to pass over, the function that will get executed when everything is sorted out. So let's just line these up nicely. I think that's pretty much good enough. Okay, so just to recap, we're searching, we're passing in text and callback. So this is going to get fired from somewhere else in our application. We don't know where yet. This is just a public way of accessing it. Once we've accessed it, we're saying, hey, this is a search with just some text. So let's create a request using these parameters. And remember, these are specific to the API that we're calling. And also pass it over the callback so it can do something at the end. So that's pretty much simple enough. We can also create a function to search by location. And what's this going to pass in? Well, a latitude, a longitude, and what else? Of course, the callback, because we have to do something after we have the data. So again, this is going to use the same send request. It's going to pass in that object. And what does the object contain? Well, it contains pretty much everything here, or the first part of it at least. Let's just copy that. Let's have that. But it's not going to have a place name because it's by location. So this will be center underscore point. Mind how you spell center if you're American, because this is a British API. They spell center the correct way. I'm just messing with you. Comma plus our longitude. So we're just passing in the coordinates. I've spelled longitude funnily there. Let's get rid of that I. Longitude. And then, of course, let's give it also that callback. Okay, and that's the end of that function, so we can save that. Now, finally, there is another function, just one final one that we have to define if you think about it. And this is what if we want to repeat that previous request, but for another page number. So we want page 2 of the results, page 3, etc. Well, we will call this repeat for page, and this will just pass in the page and the associated callback as usual. So what are we going to do here? Well, first we'll say var params is equal to, and you guessed it, this is going to be the last param map. Remember, we stored that. So we don't have to redefine everything. Then we're going to add another parameter to this, or replace the current one, the params.page, equal to page, and that's the one we've passed in here, so we can request the next page. And then finally, all that's left is to send that request using those params and using that callback. Look at my double brackets again. Right, so now we have all the basic functions that we need nicely laid out. So we have search, search by location, and repeat for page, repeat the last search effectively. Now we need some way to actually access these from other items, objects, classes, to use the classic version of the word, but we don't use classes here. So how do we go about doing that? Well, that's what we're going to dive into in the next lecture when we'll be looking at what are called signals.